Hi guys, this is Aylar and welcome to the Peace Consumer channel. In today's video, we will discuss the vacation rental platform Vrbo. Consumers often compare Vrbo to Airbnb and the results are not in favor of the former. Our site users rate Vrbo 1.5 stars out of 5. And the recent recommendations from them say, answer your customers and pay them back what you owe. Do not expect Vrbo to help you. Avoid this property. Request bylaw regulation of short-term rentals if reservation is at a condo. Use Airbnb. To understand why consumers are so dissatisfied with the service, we contacted our user Andrea. She found herself in a terrible situation. Let's hear her story.
I was away. I wanted to go down to Tampa on a vacation. I spent a couple of days in Tampa. Then I decided I wanted to stay in St. Petersburg. So I looked up Verbo on Verbo, and they had an apartment in St. Petersburg. And I thought, well, this looks nice. And I didn't, because I was new at this, I really didn't read as much as I should have. And I went to this place, but it said all the basics. It was safe. It seemed like it was fine. And the reviews seemed pretty good. And then I walked in and she checked me in. And within 10 minutes, I got really sick from the place. And I went out to see her because she lived on the property. So this was above her garage. So I went out to her property. You could see I was breaking out in welts everywhere and I couldn't breathe. And there had been pet dander everywhere in the apartment. So right away, I got really sick and I came downstairs to talk to her. And at that point, she said to me, I can't talk right now. I need my wine because I was married to a sociopathic husband. And she says, we'll need to talk about this later. And I said, but she did notice all the stuff all over me that I was breaking out and she didn't want to deal with it. So I left it for a while. I came back down. It was raining very hard. So it wasn't a good time to be traveling around. It was raining very hard. The thunderstorms were coming down. The rain was coming heavily. I went back up there for a little bit. I walked around and looked at some stuff, and I started taking pillowcases off of the bed, and I started looking at the pillows, and they were all filled with this gross stuff. And the apartment was tidy, but it was very dirty. And she charged $120 cleaning fee for it, and I don't think it would have cost $40 to clean it the way it was cleaned. So then I went back down again, and I tried texting her a couple times and Verbo to find out what could be done. And she said to me that she wasn't willing to talk to me. And when I went to her place this time, knocked on the door, because before she was outside, all these cats came to the door with her. So I knew that there had been cats in the apartment, which I'm highly allergic to. And she said, oh, no, they've never gone in there. She says, but I can't talk to you about this. I said, well, let's make a deal. Let's make it fair. For my stupidity in not really looking at this situation close enough and being new at this, let's just split the difference. And I'll check out in the morning and I'll be gone first thing and you can keep the rest of it. Well, she didn't want to talk about it. She didn't want to deal with it. She just, left it be. And so she said, can we deal with this in the morning? Meanwhile, all night I tried calling Verbo. I couldn't get through to them other than a virtual assistant. If it wasn't a health problem, just because the place was messy, it didn't matter, but it was a health issue and it wasn't clean. And I was paying $120 for that clean. So I just picked up and left in the morning, tried reaching Verbo many times, and I even called my bank to try and cancel some of the payments and different things because I'd given her over $700 up front for this place for a couple of days. Anyway, it didn't work out. Verbo wouldn't deal with it at all. And I kept getting someplace over in the Philippines and they didn't know what to do. And so on top of that, what happened was I sent in some reviews for Verbo. It must have been through Verbo because it wasn't your site. And I just got a letter back yesterday, which is really interesting, saying they wouldn't post my review because it had profanities in it. I've never used a profanity once, not with her, not with this thing. And I still have the document that I wrote, and I sent it back to them saying there's no profanities in this. I said all I did was quote what she quoted to me when I said, let's work through this. I'll take half back. It's better than nothing. And they said that I use profanities. Well, the only profanity I can think of is the fact that instead of dealing with the situation, she said to me, well, I need to drink because my husband is a sociopathic guy. And so that was her answer to my problems, telling me her back hurt and her husband is a sociopath and she was divorced. And so I don't see where the profanity is. So they wouldn't even post my review, And what I would like people to know is I'd like people to know to really look over a listing. I'm fairly new at this, but I picked it up pretty quickly because I was kicked pretty heavily the first time with no assistance from Verbo. And, I just think that people should really look at these listings. I usually use Airbnb, and trust me, they're so much better to deal with from a point of view of any problems because I did use Airbnb once, and I did have a problem, and you know what? They rectified it right away. There was no issues, there was no fighting with a third party or anybody else. They just took care of it to what was fair. And I think anytime we're in any situation in life, if something is fair and we take responsibility for our part and they take responsibility for their part, which she's in the hospitality industry, it just makes sense. That way it's fair, it's equal. I mean, realistically, the way the dirt was in the house and how sick I got, and she witnessed it. She saw the big welts all over me. She saw that I was having problems breathing, and she didn't care at all. And I would have said to anybody, and I've been in the hospital. I grew up. My father owned hotels, and they weren't the nicest hotels. If somebody wanted their money back, I was more than happy to give it back to them because we want people to be happy and okay. And the other thing about this odd situation is when I did talk to Verbo, I said to the fellow on the phone that I spoke to in the Philippines, I said, how often is this place rented? And she said, well, it was once in May and once in this month and that. And I said, oh, gee, that's interesting. I said, because, she hadn't rented it in quite some time. And yet in the fridge and in everywhere in the cupboards, there was all kinds of used food and everything else. And then I have a service dog with me, which I got permission to bring. He doesn't shed or anything because I'm allergic. And, I put down a little bit of his food for him that night when we got in. And the next morning, just there's like 5 little grains of rice on the ground. There was bugs everywhere, all over the whole kitchen because there's food everywhere. It was just awful. It smelled like cat urine everywhere, outside and inside. I mean, I think even people that like cats wouldn't have been able to do that. So I think, I was being really fair. Never once did I swear at anybody. Did I yell at anybody? Have I ever been offensive in any way? I actually offered suggestions to them. I said, it just makes sense that, you know, somebody speak to me about this firsthand so they can hear my side of the story versus just one side, which is the customer. And it's sometimes you just write things off. I could have talked to this lady a couple more times, and I thought, you know what? She's very bitter. She's an angry person. And, she started throwing all kinds of mental health issues at me, saying, well, go get your head fixed. Well, I'm not the one that was married to the sociopath. You know what I'm saying? So it was a tough decision, and I just broke away. I could have fought it more, but I thought, you know what, peace is better in this case. And I'm going to learn. Next time I'm only going to use Airbnb because they actually have done a great job of fighting and actually just listening. Anytime in life we have a problem, if people just listen, it diffuses things by at least 50%. Just listen, have some empathy and compassion. $700 for a couple of days. Trust me, I could have stayed in a hotel and I should have. I just thought, oh, it'll be nice to be in a neighborhood and cute. It looks like it's in good shape. But of course, the pictures are very sneaky of it. It makes it look like you're staying in this jungle treehouse, and really it's not. So that was tough. When I first went to the property and arrived, I had to call her outside of the house. So she came out and met me. And the first thing she started doing was showing me where all the garbage cans are. I didn't say a thing because at this point I thought, well, maybe she's got some mental illnesses or something, or she doesn't know. I mean, who shows a guest who just gave you $700 cash where the garbage cans are? It's not my job. If I stay in a hotel and I use the garbage can in the bathroom, I'm going to put my toilet paper roll in there or whatever it is that goes in there, and she can empty it. I didn't go on vacation to empty her garbage. So these were some of the things that I had issue with. And, I want more than anything, even more than the money back. I want people to know that this place is not a good place. It's just not. Don't waste your money going and spending time there, and thinking that you're going to have a relaxing time because it's not. She offered many times if I wanted to sit down and drink with her. No, I didn't want to sit down and drink with her. You're not my aunt from another state. You're somebody who is in a business of hospitality. That was it. I guess I'm just disappointed in Verbo. These days, you've got great credit card companies like Discover and even TD Bank. Even if it's a debit card, they'll fight something for you based on the fact that, something is not right. But I never once heard from Verbo. Never once. Never once did they care. They said, no, there's no upper management you can talk to. I found out it had to do with Expedia. Expedia owns the company. And I've used Expedia before, but it's certainly going to make me think twice about using Expedia, even because I prefer a company who at least wants to hear what I have to say and how could we make it better.
So, what was VRBO's reaction to this?
Every time I would get through to Verbo, I spent over 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours that first night when this happened. And I'd be on the phone for 20 minutes with them, 25 minutes on hold, and then it would be cut off. And so this happened probably 4 or 5 times. Then I tried using virtual assistant, and that is all programmed. So, you're only going to get so much out of that. And then I think the next day, maybe I got a hold of somebody and it was in the Philippines. So the call was routed over there and it was very hard to hear him. And he was reading off a script. He wasn't prepared to do anything. And you can tell by the scripts that they can't do much, you know, and they're not prepared to.
We hope that VRBO will hear its clients and improve its services. So, feel free to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and in the comments, answer the question, which booking service do you use? That's all for today. Thank you for watching and see you next time.